The sleek silver hull of the Aurora gleamed against the black backdrop of space as it cruised through the outer reaches of our solar system. Captain Lee stood at the command center, his experienced eyes scanning the readings that flashed across the holographic displays. Something unusual had appeared on their long-range sensors, a formation that didn't match any known natural phenomenon. "What do you make of this, Kim?" he asked, gesturing to the science officer who was already busy analyzing the data. "Officer." Kim pushed her dark hair back from her face, her brow furrowed in concentration. "Sir, these readings suggest artificial structures, multiple objects moving in formation." She looked up, her eyes wide. "I believe we're looking at ships." Ships. Not of Earth origin. The crew fell silent. Despite decades of searching the stars, humanity had never made contact with another intelligent species. Until now. "All stations on alert," Captain Lee ordered, his voice steady despite the gravity of the moment. "Not hostile, just ready. Open. All communication channels." For 3 tense days, the Aurora maintained position while attempting to establish contact. The alien vessels kept their distance, seemingly studying the human ship with the same caution the humans were studying them. On the 4th day, a signal came through. The message arrived first as patterns of light, then strange harmonic tones, and finally, after the ship's computers worked through the complex translation, as words. The aliens called themselves the Nuri, and they requested permission to board the Aurora for face-to-face talks. "We accept," Captain Lee responded, feeling the weight of history on his shoulders. "We welcome you as friends." The crew hurriedly prepared the meeting room, hearts pounding with a mixture of excitement and apprehension. When the shuttle from the alien vessel docked with the Aurora, everyone held their breath. The airlock doors slid open to reveal 3 figures unlike anything humans had ever seen. Standing just over 5 feet tall, their bodies seemed to shimmer with a blue-green iridescence beneath what appeared to be full environmental suits. Their movements were fluid, almost dancing, as they stepped carefully onto the human ship. "Welcome. Aboard the Aurora," Captain Lee said, stepping forward with his hand extended in the universal gesture of peace. The lead figure tilted its helmet, which remained firmly sealed, and made a graceful gesture that somehow conveyed both greeting and caution. Through the translation system, a melodic voice emerged. "I am Day, speaker for the Nuri. We are grateful for your welcome, though we must remain within our protective gear." Captain Lee nodded respectfully. "Of course, whatever makes you comfortable. We have much to learn from each other." As the diplomatic talks progressed in the ship's conference room, Officer Kim noticed that the aliens kept glancing at the humans with what seemed like amazement. Finally, she could no longer contain her curiosity. "If I may ask," she said, "you seem surprised by something about us. May I know what it is?" The aliens exchanged looks through their helmets before Day responded. "We are astounded that you exist at all." The translator conveyed the genuine wonder in Day's voice. "You breathe freely in this environment." Kim looked confused. "Our ship's atmosphere, it's standard Earth conditions." "Yes," Day replied. "What you call oxygen. To most life in our galaxy, it is a deadly poison that corrodes organic tissue and destroys cellular structures. Yet you not only survive in it, you require it." A stunned silence fell over the human crew. "Oxygen?" Engineer Tay blurted out. "But it makes up 21% of Earth's atmosphere. All life on our planet needs it." Day's helmet tilted in what seemed to be an expression of astonishment. 21%? Such concentrations would kill any Nuri in moments. On our world, free oxygen exists only in trace amounts, carefully avoided by all living things. Captain Lee leaned forward, fascinated. "So your environmental suits are not just for different pressure or temperature requirements, they're keeping oxygen away from you?" "Yes," confirmed Day. "Your bodies must possess extraordinary protective mechanisms to prevent oxidative damage. To us, watching you breathe is like watching someone bathe in acid and remain unharmed." The realization dawned on the human crew. What they had always taken for granted, the very air they breathed, was considered a superpower across the galaxy. "Is this why you've approached Earth?" asked Kim. "Because of our oxygen resistance?" Day hesitated before responding. "Partially. We are refugees, seeking new worlds, after our home system suffered catastrophic stellar events. But when our scouts discovered your world, with its oxygen-resistant life forms, we realized you might be unique allies in a galaxy where few can survive such environments. Captain Lee nodded slowly, beginning to understand the implications. Humanity, just taking its first steps into space, might already possess a biological advantage they'd never imagined. What they considered ordinary might actually be extraordinary. We have much to learn from each other, he said finally, extending his hand toward Day in friendship, and perhaps much to offer each other as well. As the meeting continued into the night, the humans and Nuri began planning for a future neither species could have imagined even days before, one where humanity's most basic trait would become its most valuable contribution to the galactic. Community.news of the Nuri arrival spread across Earth like wildfire. 6 months after first contact, construction crews worked day and night to build the massive domes that would house the alien refugees in the deserts of Nevada. These weren't ordinary structures. They were completely sealed environments designed to filter out every molecule of oxygen and replace it with the nitrogen-methane mix the Nuri needed to survive. Dr. Park stood at the edge of the construction site, watching the enormous curved panels being lifted into place by heavy machinery. As Earth's leading xenobiologist, she had been working non-stop since the Aurora returned with its world-changing news. "Amazing how fast things can change," said Director Choi, appearing beside her with 2 coffee cups. He handed one to Park and sipped from the other. 3 years ago, we were still arguing about whether intelligent alien life existed at all. Dr. Park accepted the coffee with a tired smile. And now we're building them homes. The first dome was nearly complete, a gleaming half-sphere that rose 20 stories high and stretched almost a mile across. Inside, engineers were installing atmospheric processors, artificial gravity adjusters, and lighting that mimicked the Nuri homeworld's red dwarf star. "How are your patients doing?" Choi asked. Dr. Park had been studying the 3 Nuri volunteers, who had agreed to extensive medical examination. "Fascinating," she replied. "Their cellular structure is completely different from ours. Exposure to even 5% oxygen concentration causes their equivalent of cell membranes to break down almost immediately. So breathing our air really would be like swimming in acid for them?" "Worse," Park said. "It would be like swimming in something that dissolves you while simultaneously setting you on fire. Their biochemistry is built around avoiding oxidation at all costs." She pulled out her tablet and showed him microscope footage of what happened. When Nuri tissue samples were exposed to oxygenated environments, the cellular structures seemed to bubble and disintegrate in seconds. "And yet we need oxygen to live," Choi mused. "We breathe it in with every breath. Our blood carries it to every cell." "Exactly. What's ordinary for us is extraordinary, even impossible, for most galactic life forms." Park put her tablet away. "The Nuri scientists were shocked when I showed them human blood cells under a microscope. They called our oxygen-binding hemoglobin the impossible molecule." 2 weeks later, the first dome was declared ready for habitation. 500 Nuri would be the first to leave their cramped ships and set foot on a planetary surface again. Park stood in the observation room, separated from the main dome by triple-sealed windows and airlocks. She watched as the atmospheric processors finished their work, stripping the last traces of oxygen from the environment. "Atmospheric content at 0.0003% oxygen," announced the technician. "Nitrogen at 78%, methane at 15%, trace gases balanced. Temperature stabilized at 27 degrees Celsius. We're green for entry." The massive doors at the base of the dome slid open, and the first Nuri stepped through. Without their environmental suits, the humans got their first real look at the aliens. They were beautiful. Their skin had an iridescent quality that shifted, colors as they moved, blues, greens, and purples flowing like oil on water. They moved with remarkable grace, their 4-fingered hands gesturing expressively as they explored their new home. News cameras captured the historic moment for the billions watching around the world. The Nuri raised their arms toward the dome's ceiling in what appeared to be a gesture of gratitude. "They're thanking the sky," whispered the Nuri cultural liaison. "It's a deep spiritual gesture from their world." Over the following months, more domes were completed across Earth's less populated regions. As the Nuri settled in, humanity began to understand just how unique their position in the galaxy might be. Dr. Park's lab became the center for interspecies medical research. One morning, she arrived to find an urgent message requesting her presence at the main communication center. "We've been contacted by 3 new species," said Communications Director Jin when she arrived, "all of them asking about the oxygen breathers who have taken in the Nuri refugees." Park stared at the images on the screen. 3 entirely different alien species, each more strange and wonderful than the last. "They want to send scientific delegations," Jin continued. "Apparently, we're something of a galactic curiosity now." Within weeks, ships from the Huan, the Sori, and the Taiyang arrived. In Earth orbit, each species required their own specialized environmental systems, but all shared one common trait. They found Earth's oxygen-rich atmosphere toxic and humanity's ability to thrive in it nothing short of miraculous. At a welcome ceremony for the scientific delegations, Park found herself surrounded by representatives from 4 different worlds, all watching in fascination as she simply breathed. "You must understand," said the Sori scientist through a translator, "oxygen is one of the most reactive elements in the universe. It destroys, it corrodes, it breaks chemical bonds. On most life-bearing worlds, organisms spend their evolutionary history developing ways to avoid oxygen or neutralize it. But Earth life," added the Huan researcher, "took a different path. You didn't just adapt to oxygen, you harnessed it, made it central to your metabolism. It's like discovering creatures who drink lava for nourishment." As the refugee domes filled and more alien scientists arrived to study humanity's oxygen immunity, Earth found itself unexpectedly at the center of galactic attention. Schools changed their science curriculums, adding chapters about alien biochemistry. Children who once dreamed of becoming astronauts now wanted to be xenobiologists or interspecies diplomats. One evening, Park stood with a group of local children at the dome observation window. Inside, young Nuri were playing games, their skin flashing patterns of light as they darted about. "Are they trapped in there forever?" asked a small boy. Park smiled. "No, they're safe in there. Just like fish need water to breathe, they need their special air. And just like fish would die in our air, they would die in ours." "So we're special because we breathe oxygen?" a girl asked. "Very special," Park replied. "Sometimes the things we take most for granted turn out to be our greatest gifts." Commander Han checked his oxygen tank one more time before securing his helmet. All around him in the small drop ship, 20 elite soldiers did the same, each one chosen for this mission because of their quick thinking and adaptive combat skills. None of them had ever imagined their first battle against an alien species would rely more on chemistry than firepower. "Remember," Han said, his voice steady despite the tension, "their systems aren't built to handle oxidation. These tanks aren't. Just for us to breathe, they're our primary weapons." 3 days earlier, a fleet of unknown vessels had appeared near Mars without warning. They bypassed all communication attempts and immediately attacked the fledgling Nuri settlement that Earth had helped establish on the Red Planet. The settlement's distress call had been brief but clear. "Unknown hostiles, advanced weapons we cannot hold." Earth's response fleet had arrived to find the attackers, who called themselves the Boruk, systematically dismantling the Nuri colony. Dome. Intelligence gathered from damaged Boruk ships revealed they were scavengers who targeted vulnerable colonies for their resources and technology. 60 seconds to drop, announced the pilot. Han looked at his team. The Nuri took refuge with us when they had nowhere else to go. Today we show the galaxy that Earth protects its friends. The dropship doors opened, and Han's team deployed onto the Martian surface. Through his helmet visor, Han could see the massive Boruk ships hovering over the partially destroyed Nuri dome. Smaller craft darted around, pulling apart the structure. With energy beams. "Sun Team, circle east." "Moon Team with me," Han ordered. "Remember your training with the Nuri engineers. Target the propulsion vents first." The human soldiers moved across the rusty landscape with practiced ease. Unlike the Boruk, whose bulky environmental suits showed they were unused to planetary operations, Han's team had trained for Mars missions for years. As they approached the first Boruk vessel, Han signaled for his team to activate their special equipment, devices developed in just 48 hours by human and Nuri engineers working together. The small circular discs attached magnetically to the outer hull of the alien ship. "Oxygen charges placed," reported Sergeant Yu over the comm. "Ready on your mark." Han moved his team back to a safe distance. "All teams in position? Detonate. In 3, 2, 1 now." The charges didn't explode with fire or force. Instead, they released highly concentrated oxygen directly into the ship's external intake systems. To human eyes, nothing seemed to happen for several seconds. Then alarms began blaring from the Boruk vessels. "It's working," Han said, watching through binoculars as panels along the ship began to discolor and corrode. "The oxygen is reacting with their ship materials." Across the battlefield, the human teams continued attaching oxygen charges to Boruk ships. Some of the alien vessels attempted to fire weapons, but their energy systems flickered and failed as internal components oxidized. "And degraded. Commander, look!" called Corporal Kang, pointing to a larger Boruk vessel now descending toward their position. This ship was different, heavily armored and clearly the command vessel. Its weapons systems remained operational despite the oxygen attack affecting the smaller craft. "They've adapted," Han realized. "That ship must be better protected against environmental hazards." The Boruk command ship fired, blasting a crater into the Martian soil just meters from Han's position. His team scattered, taking cover behind rock formations. "We need a new plan," Han said into his comm. "That ship has shielded systems." There was a moment of silence before Sergeant Yu's voice came through. "Commander, what about their docking bay? Every ship needs to let crew in and out. That has to be a vulnerability." Han studied the enemy vessel through his binoculars. "Sure. Enough." A section along the bottom was opening periodically as smaller craft returned from their raiding missions. "Good thinking. All teams converge on my position. We're going to need to get inside that thing." Using the chaos of the disabled smaller ships as cover, Han led his team across the Martian landscape toward the command vessel. When they reached the area beneath the docking bay, they waited for the doors to open for a returning Boruk craft. "Get ready with the high-concentration canisters," Han ordered. When the bay doors opened, Han's team fired specialized launchers that sent oxygen canisters tumbling into the docking area. As the doors began to close, Han held his breath, watching anxiously. For several heartbeats, nothing happened. Then emergency lights began flashing across the Boruk ship. Through the still-closing bay doors, Han could see Boruk soldiers collapsing, as their environmental suits failed against the aggressive oxidation. "It's working!" shouted Yu. "Their internal systems are compromised." The massive ship began to drift, its propulsion systems failing as oxygen spread through its ventilation network. Boruk troops poured out of emergency exits, their movements panicked and disorganized. Over the next hour, the remaining Boruk vessels retreated from Mars orbit, leaving behind their damaged command ship and several smaller craft. The human forces had suffered no casualties. In the command center back on Earth, General Yoon received Han's report with a sense of wonder. "So you defeated an advanced alien military force with oxygen tanks?" "Yes, sir," Han replied through the video link. "To them, our oxygen is essentially a corrosive weapon. Their technology isn't designed to withstand oxidation. Their metals corrode, their synthetic materials break down, their electronic components fail." The general shook his head in amazement. "What we breathe every day nearly destroyed their entire fleet." 2 days later, as Han's team helped the Nuri rebuild their colony, a message arrived from Earth. 3 more alien species had reached out to establish diplomatic relations with humanity. Word of the Boruk defeat had spread quickly through whatever communication network connected the spacefaring civilizations. "Apparently," Han told his troops as they gathered for the evening meal, "breathing oxygen is now considered a military superpower. The Huan ambassador told Earth's president that we're like beings who swim in fire and remain unburned." Corporal Kang laughed. "So all those years of PT and weapons training, and what gave us the edge was just breathing." "Not just breathing," Han corrected. "Understanding our unique place in the galaxy. For millennia we thought we were alone. Then we thought we were ordinary. Now we know that the very air we take for granted makes us extraordinary." As night fell on Mars, Han looked up at the stars with new eyes. Humanity had just taken its first steps into a much larger universe, one where their most basic biological trait had suddenly become their greatest strength. The massive United Nations building had been transformed for the Galactic Summit. The Grand Assembly Hall, once designed for Earth's nations, now held representatives from 7 different spacefaring civilizations. Special environmental chambers lined the walls, each custom-built to sustain the specific atmospheric needs of the visiting delegates. Diplomat June adjusted his formal attire as he prepared to address the assembly. After a year of preparations, Earth was finally hosting the first official galactic diplomatic gathering. The stakes couldn't be higher. Earth was still the newcomer in interstellar politics, and how they handled this summit would shape humanity's role for generations. "Nervous?" asked Dr. Park, joining him at the observation window. Below, they could see the delegates settling into their chambers. Some species moved with fluid grace, others with mechanical precision, but all were watching the empty human podium with clear anticipation. "Terrified," June admitted with a small smile. "But ready, we've prepared for this moment since the Nuri first arrived." Dr. Park nodded, her face reflecting the same mix of anxiety and pride. "Your speech is perfect. Just remember, they're as fascinated by us as we are by them." When June entered the assembly hall, a respectful silence fell. He walked to the podium, feeling the weight of 7 billion humans on his shoulders. The Earth delegation sat to his right, while the alien representatives watched from their chambers. The blue-skinned Nuri, the crystalline Huan, the towering Zori, the gas-formed Taiyang, and 3 other species who had only recently made contact. "Distinguished representatives of the galaxy," June began, his voice steady and clear, "on behalf of Earth and all humanity, I welcome you to our world. A world that, as we have all come to realize, is unique in ways we never imagined." The translator systems hummed softly, converting his words into the various languages and communication forms used by the delegates. "1 year ago, we learned that what humans need to survive, oxygen, is considered deadly by most galactic life. What we breathe freely would kill most of you in moments. This discovery has transformed how we see ourselves and our place in the universe." The assembly remained silent, attentive. The Huan representative's crystalline body glittered as they leaned forward in apparent interest. "Today, we gather not just as different species, but as beings with complementary strengths. Where you cannot go, we can. What you cannot touch, we can handle. Our differences are not barriers, they are opportunities." As June continued his speech, outlining proposals for trade, cultural exchange, and mutual defense, he noticed tension building between the Sori and Taiyang chambers. The 2 species had a long history of territorial disputes, according to the briefings. Their representatives were making increasingly agitated gestures at each other. The Sori delegate suddenly stood, its 4-limbed body rigid with anger. Through the translator came. "The Taiyang delegation speaks falsely. They claim no knowledge of the border incursions, yet our monitoring stations lies." The Taiyang representative's gaseous form swirled violently in its chamber. "Your monitoring stations are placed in our territory. This is just another Sori provocation." The assembly erupted into a cacophony of translated arguments as other species took sides. June looked helplessly at his team. This was precisely the kind of incident they had feared. Ancient alien rivalries threatening to derail Earth's first galactic summit. Then, Dr. Park stepped forward, whispering urgently in June's ear. He listened, then nodded, a slow smile spreading across his face. "Representatives, please," June called, raising his hands. When the chamber quieted, he continued, "I propose we discuss this specific matter in the neutral conference chamber, where no environmental barriers will separate us." The room fell silent again, but with a different quality. Surprise, even shock. "You mean the oxygen room?" the Sori delegate asked cautiously. "Yes," June confirmed. "As the only oxygen-tolerant species present, humans will moderate. No species will have a home field advantage. All participants will be in their environmental suits on equal footing." The delegates exchanged glances through their various chambers. The human proposal was elegant in its simplicity. No species would risk breaking diplomatic protocol, when doing so meant potential exposure to oxygen. We accept this arrangement, the Taiyang representative said finally. As do we, added the Sori delegate. Later that evening, after successful negotiations in the oxygen-neutral zone, June found Dr. Park in the research wing adjacent to the UN building. She was showing a group of alien scientists the results of her latest work. These cellular samples demonstrate how human metabolism actively harnesses oxygen, she explained, pointing to the display screens showing microscopic images. Our mitochondria use it to produce energy through controlled oxidation, while our bodies have evolved complex antioxidant systems to prevent damage. The alien scientists watched in fascination as she displayed different tissue samples. This explains much, said the Huan scientist, its crystalline form shifting in patterns that suggested deep thought. Your species evolved in an environment that would kill most other intelligent life forms. You developed not just tolerance to oxygen, but dependence on it. Your cellular repair mechanisms must be extraordinarily sophisticated. In a way, Dr. Park agreed, though we never thought of them as special until we met you. We always assumed oxygen breathing was the norm for advanced life. Most extraordinary, the Nuri scientist added. This suggests humans could potentially survive environmental conditions that would be fatal to other species. Have you considered the implications for joint exploration missions? As the scientific discussion continued, June slipped away to a quiet balcony overlooking the nighttime skyline of New York. The city lights glittered below, while above, unfamiliar ships hung in the sky like new stars. Quite a view, said a voice behind him. It was Director Choi, looking tired but satisfied. It is, June agreed. Did you ever imagine we'd be hosting 7 alien species on Earth? Never, Choi admitted. But I'm beginning to think we've found our place in the galactic community. As mediators, June asked. As bridges, Choi corrected. We can go where they cannot. We can handle what they cannot touch. We breathe what they consider poison. Our very biology makes us unique. Not stronger or smarter necessarily, but different in ways that matter. June nodded slowly. The oxygen advantage. Exactly. Today was just the beginning. Tomorrow, Dr. Park presents her full research findings to the Assembly. Her team has discovered that human cellular repair mechanisms might hold the key to helping other species develop limited oxygen tolerance. Will she succeed? June asked. Choi smiled. I don't know. But that's the remarkable thing about humans, isn't it? We keep trying things that seem impossible until suddenly they're not. Below them, the city continued its nighttime rhythm, most of its inhabitants unaware of how profoundly their understanding of humanity's place in the universe had changed. They were no longer just one species on one planet. They were oxygen, breathers in a galaxy that found that simple fact nothing short of miraculous. 5 years had passed since Earth first welcomed the Nuri refugees, and the relationship between humans and their galactic neighbors had transformed in ways no one could have predicted. What began as a curious biological difference, humanity's ability to breathe oxygen, had blossomed into a complex web of interdependence that was changing both human and alien societies. Engineer Sue stood in her workshop at the edge of the massive Nuri settlement dome in Arizona, making final adjustments to her latest invention. The device looked simple, a small silver disc about the size of her palm, but it represented thousands of hours of research and collaboration between human and alien scientists. Is it ready? Asked Tay, her Nuri assistant, watching from behind, the safety of a transparent barrier. Unlike the first generation of Nuri visitors who had to wear full environmental suits, Tai used only a lightweight breathing mask connected to a small tank on his back. It was one of many improvements that had made interaction between the species much easier. Almost, Sue replied, carefully sealing the final component. If this works, it will be the smallest oxygen barrier we've ever created. Enough power to run continuously for a month, covering up to 6 square meters. The oxygen barrier technology was Sue's breakthrough, a field that neutralized oxygen molecules in a specific area, creating safe zones for oxygen-sensitive species without requiring full environmental domes. The early versions had been bulky and power-hungry, but each generation became smaller and more efficient. "The Council is very excited," Tay said, his skin flashing patterns of blue-green that humans had learned to recognize as happiness. "If this works as planned, it will revolutionize our joint starship designs." Sue nodded, trying not to show her anxiety. The prototype was being presented to the Galactic Council tomorrow, and everything had to be perfect. The Earth-Nuri Research Alliance had staked its reputation on her work. Later that evening, Sue took the high-speed train to the spaceport outside of Phoenix. Construction lights illuminated the massive ship taking shape there, the Harmony, the first true human-alien collaborative vessel. Unlike earlier ships, which required separate sections for different species, the Harmony was designed to allow mixed crews to work together throughout the vessel, thanks to oxygen barrier technology. "There she is," called out a familiar voice, as Sue approached the security checkpoint. It was Captain Min, the human commander selected to lead the Harmony's maiden voyage. He jogged over to her, his weathered face breaking into a broad smile. "How's my favorite engineer?" "Nervous," Sue admitted. "The new barrier prototype has to work tomorrow, or the Council might reconsider the mixed crew approach." Min waved away her concern. "It'll work. And even if it doesn't, we're past the point of turning back. The Nuri need us as much as we need them now." He was right. In the 5 years since first contact, the relationship between humans and aliens had evolved from curiosity to necessity. The Nuri possessed advanced propulsion technology that allowed ships to travel 10 times faster than the best human engines. Humans, meanwhile, could work safely in oxygen environments that would kill a Nuri in seconds. The partnership had proven especially valuable after the Boruk incident, when human troops used oxygen as a weapon to drive off alien attackers targeting a Nuri settlement on Mars. That victory had sent shockwaves through the galactic community and established Earth as a formidable defensive ally. "Come on," Min said. The teams gathered for a final briefing before tomorrow's demonstration. "You should see what the Nuri engineers have added to the propulsion system. It's like nothing we've ever built before." As they walked through the spaceport, Sue marveled at how quickly humans had adapted to the presence of aliens. Children played. In the recreation areas, some human, some Nuri, separated by thin shimmer fields that kept their atmospheres distinct, without preventing them from seeing each other. Language barriers had fallen as translation technology improved, and cultural exchange programs flourished. The briefing room buzzed with activity, a mix of humans and aliens from 3 different species, all working together on the Harmony project. The room was divided into environmental sections, but the barriers were minimal and communication flowed freely. "Sue," called out Dr. Jin, waving her over. "I want you to meet Bay, the Huan crystalline engineer who solved our radiation shielding problem." The Huan's body glittered with facets of purple and blue as it made a graceful gesture of greeting. "Engineer Sue, your oxygen barrier designs have made possible what we once thought impossible. My people speak of you with great respect." Sue felt her cheeks warm at the praise. "And your crystalline technology has revolutionized our communication systems. We all contribute what we can." "That's the beauty of it, isn't it?" Jin said, looking around at the diverse group. 5 years ago, we were strangers, afraid of our differences. Now those same differences are our greatest strength." The next morning, Sue stood before the Galactic Council with her prototype. Representatives from 12 spacefaring species watched as she activated the small disk. A gentle shimmer appeared in the air, creating a perfect dome of oxygen-free space. "This barrier can be integrated into walls, floors, even furniture," Sue explained. "It creates safe zones for oxygen-sensitive species, while allowing humans to work nearby without environmental suits. The applications are endless, from mixed cruise ships to emergency medical facilities." The council members murmured with approval as Sue continued her demonstration. When she finished, the head of the council, a Nuri elder named Ray, stood to address the gathering. 5 years ago, when our ships first approached Earth, we saw only refugees seeking shelter. We could not have imagined the partnership that would develop from that desperate beginning." Ray's skin rippled with patterns of light as he spoke. "Humans have given us more than sanctuary. They have given us a new way to explore the galaxy. Their unique biology, which we once viewed with fear, has become our greatest asset. 2 weeks later, Sue stood with Captain Min on the bridge of the Harmony as the ship prepared for its maiden voyage. Thanks to her barriers, humans worked alongside aliens throughout the vessel, each species contributing their unique abilities. "Course laid in for the Proxima Centauri system," reported the Nuri navigator. "Propulsion systems at full capacity." "Communications. Hooray online," added the Huan officer, its crystalline form glittering under the bridge lights. Min nodded, taking his seat in the captain's chair. "This is just the beginning, isn't it?" he said quietly to Sue. 5 years from meeting our first aliens to building ships together." "And in another 5? Sue asked, smiling. Min laughed. "Who knows? But whatever the galaxy throws at us, we'll face it together." Turns out breathing oxygen was just the first of humanity's surprising talents. As the Harmony lifted from Earth's surface, carrying its mixed crew toward the stars, Sue thought about how far they'd come, what had once been humanity's most basic need, the very air they breathed, had become the foundation for their place in the galactic community. Not as conquerors or subjects, but as essential partners in a cosmic relationship that was just beginning to reveal its potential.